Hello, everyone. It is I, your Legionnaire and Rex Sylvestris, coming at you with a most illustrious historical analysis and review. After an odyssey of knowledge acquisition, I've come to posit my personal reasoning and beliefs about the fall of the Western Roman Empire. May I say, I entirely regret my hubris in choosing a topic that is so inundated with Latin and Italians.
How about that prick's face when he saw the gat?
Hey, that's what I get for letting Mr. Jensen choose what I'm doing my project on. Without further ado, here's the... Our story begins with a tale of the old empire. You see, this was a prosperous time of great happiness, minus the occasional insane guy. But the administrative upkeep of having an empire that's literally the biggest got too much to handle. We also have to keep in mind that messages were transported like this. So this guy, Emperor Diocletian, also known as Gaius Aurelius Valerius Diocletianus, all names in Rome are like that, was like, guys, I've got this crazy idea. What if we take our problems and split them in half, so I only have to deal with half of them and leave the rest to some other guy? And so it would be that the empire would be split in half. The East is called the Byzantine Empire, headed up at the city of Byzantium, also known as Constantinople, but now it's
Istanbul was Constantinople, now it's Istanbul, not Constantinople, been a long time gone. Constantinople, now it's Turkish delight on a moonlit.
Anyways, there are many reasons that add up to truly explain the downfall of Rome. The immediate knee-jerk reaction thought by most is that it's them barbarians, which were a major factor, but they are just a symptom of the disease that has infested the entirety of Rome by this time. The center of all of Rome's problems, like most problems, is money. The Roman economy relied heavily on silver coins, and in an ill attempt to lessen budget deficits, Rome's leadership decided to debase their own currency. Debasement is when you take a normal coin and alter it in some way to make it yield a sort of profit, called seigniorage. To do this, they would cut the coin with some other metal. A pure silver coin would be melted down and cut with different metals like copper or nickel, and then recast as a fresh new coin. Another method was to clip the edges of coins, which is literally taking a pair of tin snips and physically removing the edges. All this ends up devaluing the currency, making it so it's worth less money.
Hammer for sale. I'm selling this hammer here for somebody. I'm selling the hammer for anybody that wants to buy this hammer here. I'm selling this hammer for...
Well, good sir, I could use a hammer.
Well, I'm selling this hammer for that there exact amount of currency. Oh. Good day, sir.
Good day, my
Go buy that loaf of bread.
This
That
loaf of
one,
bread.
that one right there for this amount of currency. Here you go. Oh my God, what a good day for bread. Bread lovers like me. Oh goodness. Oh, look at this bread that I have now. Thank you for the business, sir. I shall go away now with my bread that I have, that I've acquired through this currency exchange. Sir.
This currency
Oh.
is debased.
Oh. Sir, you can't
It's
do
worth
this.
nothing. to
No. Oh.
me. Out of here.
Our good friend Emperor Diocletian would be responsible for this when he issued the changes to the Roman coin called the denarius. Rome couldn't afford to mint new coins at their original 100% purity, so Diocletian made it so that they contained more copper to cheapen the cost of production so that they could afford to pay their armies. When money is devalued, things like trade start to take a hit, which then makes it so that less money is being taxed in said trade because less people are able to spend money. And then the Roman leadership can't afford to pay their armies. And when armies don't get paid, bad things tend to happen. Rich people in Rome tend to buy votes and favors. This led to people who really shouldn't be having the roles that they have, having them, and thus leading to instability and a lack of effective governance. Inequality would also be rampant, as with, most of Rome being slaves, the wealthy elite held most of the land and wealth, leaving the majority of the population in abject poverty. The, in my opinion, biggest factor in Rome's downfall is the agricultural decline of the Western Roman Empire. The empire's agricultural practices, which were once productive and efficient, began to decline out due to various factors like over-reliance on slave labor. The Roman Empire's agricultural system was almost entirely reliant on slave labor. This allowed for large-scale production, but it also led to a lack of innovation and investment in farming techniques. And as the slave population declines in Rome, the agricultural sector struggled to adapt without any technological advancements. Other factors like the environment would be important as well. Climate change and environmental degradation were a key player in the agricultural decline as well. Droughts, famines, and pests greatly affected crop yields, leading to food shortages and economic instability. Around this time, it also began to see a period of over-reliance on the importation of grain from northern Africa. The consequences of all these economic factors would lead to more inflation, social unrest, and greater economic instability. The empire's military, which was heavily dependent on agricultural production, was also weakened, which made it vulnerable to external threats. The most major and important threat that Rome was facing around this time was that of King Alaric. King Alaric I was the king of the Visigoths, a Germanic people that were fleeing the Huns and seeking shelter away from their enemies under Roman rule. The Roman ruling class thought that letting the Goths into Rome was a great idea because their army was short on manpower and unable to properly defend the whole large empire. These Goths would then be mistreated in the Roman army. Later, under Caesar Theodosius, the Gothic soldiers would be forced to fight against a rebel Roman named Eugenius in the Battle of the Frigidus. The Gothic people suffered very, very heavy losses in this battle and got little recognition for their victory by the Romans. This led to a growing dissent against their Roman rulers. This dissent would reach a head when King Alaric would plot to march his army of Visigoths into Rome. In spring of 402, Alaric decided to invade Italy. Two large battles would be fought during this offensive, the first at Pollentia, where Stilicho, a great military governor, would achieve a grand victory over Alaric, taking his wife and children as prisoners. The second battle was at Verona, where Alaric was once again bested by the Romans. Stilicho offered Alaric a truce and the first offensive ended. Before the second invasion of Italy, large groups of barbarians would cross into Gaul. An insurrection started in Britain, and these factors combined caused Stilicho's forces to be spread thin. Once again, Alaric decided this was an opportune time to march on Rome. His forces took a position in Norcium, where he demanded 4,000 pounds of gold to stave off another invasion. Stilicho, realizing that his options were to shatter any hope of holding onto the empire or pay a significant sum to Alaric's rebellion, chose the latter option. This, however, would fatally wound his ability to be seen as a powerful leader, and Caesar Honorius's court replaces him. In the year 408, Arcadius, the leader of the Eastern Empire, died and was replaced by Theodosius II. Stilicho saw this as an opportunity. With his reputation being tarnished in the west, he sought to bring an army of allied forces to stage a coup in the east and install a regime that would be loyal to him alone. Stilicho then had to go to Ticinium. The leader of that coup was a man named Olympius. Olympius would then go on to destroy the last of Stilicho's forces and kill him after promising to leave him alive. Now, with Stilicho gone, Alaric was once again declared an enemy of the emperor. Olympius's men then massacred the families of some of Stilicho's Gothic forces, and then they defected to Alaric's side. Alaric would march his forces into a city called Pannonia. Then, after asking Olympius for a modest sum of money and a title so he would no longer be an enemy of Rome and could collect taxes, but he was then refused this because he was regarded as still being allied to Stilicho, the guy who was already dead. After being denied, he marched his forces towards Rome to institute a blockade and siege. No fights actually occurred at this time. Alaric simply refused Rome's ability to get food. He demanded a ransom from the Roman leadership, and they would end up giving him 5,000 pounds of gold, 30,000 pounds of silver, 4,000 silken tunics, 3,000 hides, and 3,000 pounds of pepper. After receiving this payment, he left Rome and ended this blockade. Now it finally seemed like Alaric would stop pestering Rome, as he had land and a title and his people were okay, but of course Honorius recanted this and now the fighting was back on. This fighting would manifest in the sack of Rome in 410. By this point, all negotiations had broken down, and Alaric took his men to Rome. Alaric and his forces sacked Rome in an assault that lasted 3 days, but still the biggest damage to Rome wasn't the taking of its food or treasure, but the psychological impact of having an unwashed barbarian come and take all their stuff. But an even greater threat would soon come to haunt Rome. That threat would be Attila the Hun. The final emperors of Rome would simply be puppets of barbarian warlords. The last Roman emperor was Romulus Augustulus, who would be forced to abdicate the Roman emperorship, and with that, Rome finally fell. All in all, Rome fell due to a myriad of factors. Economic, military, and political were all very greatly the causes of Rome's downfall. It's my belief that I think that the economy was the true linchpin of the whole thing, and if they had had that under control, then defending the empire against the invasions from barbarians would have been a lot easier. But, you know, you win some, you lose some. Thank you for listening.